Greetings, everybody. This is Christopher Messina coming at you from the Messy Time Studios on another beautiful post-FTX collapse day in Florida. It's the 18th of November, 2022. I am joined in the studios today by my friend and colleague from Atlanta, Joshua Henslee. Joshua, thanks so much for coming on.
Yep, thank you for having me again.
You bet. I'm going to just kick us right off. I'm going to have a reading from the bankruptcy filing that was submitted for FTX by the incoming CEO, who has. And I'll just quote directly. I have over 40 years of legal and restructuring experience. I've been the chief restructuring officer or CEO in several of the largest corporate failures in history. I have supervised situations involving allegations of criminal activity and malfeasance, Enron. I have supervised situations involving novel financial structures, Enron and residential capital, and cross-border asset recovery and maximization, Nortel and overseas shipholding. Nearly every situation in which I have been involved has been characterized by defects of some sort in internal controls, regulatory compliance, human resources, and systems integrity. Never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as occurred here. From compromised systems integrity and faulty regulatory oversight abroad to the concentration of control in the hands of a very small group of inexperienced, unsophisticated, and potentially compromised individuals, this situation is unprecedented. There's more, but that's the core. What are your reactions to those thoughts on Sam and his genius stone polyamorous nitwit girlfriend?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. We were told that this guy's the genius, he's a hero, he's billionaire somehow at 30. I mean, it's craziness, right? And to see it melt down real time is it's like that little girl meme where she's looking at the camera sarcastically and the house is on fire in the back.
No,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's what it's like.
It's magic. And what I find fascinating, and I feel confident in speaking to this, because having not been a bankruptcy restructuring guy, but having done a lot of due diligence on Wall Street, right? I helped two clearing firms I was part of avoid clearing business for two massive commodity trading hedge funds who my boss was pressuring me to take the client because he was a well-known guy, and nothing about the answers they gave us when we asked about due diligence systems, risk management systems, none of it made sense. I was in one meeting with one clown, and I'm not going to get into it because I don't need to get sued over this, but he became pretty famous by writing a book later, which was full of lies and nonsense. But at the time, he was the chief operating officer for this massive fund. He knew nothing about risk management. He knew nothing about nothing. As far as I could tell, he took the job because daddy was rich and wrote a check for the fund. Anyway, when we're asking him about risk controls, he kept saying, well, of course the CEO is, and he keeps naming the principal. And after the fifth time he said that, I said, buddy, I've known the CEO a decade longer than you. I know that already. That doesn't tell me how you're managing risk, right? So I say that because, smart guy Anthony Scaramucci was on Bloomberg TV just yesterday, and he was saying, well, I got burned by this, and, sometimes things fall through the cracks, and you get balance sheet statements and income statements, and I'm thinking, Anthony's a bright guy. That's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. You don't get the balance sheet statements from the company. That's what Bernie Madoff should have taught everyone. You get it from the bank. You get it from the accountants. You get it from the auditors. You do not take it from the chubby shlub looking like the 4-year-old playing mud pies. So I'm kind of blown away as to why anyone wrote this clown a check. Do you have any sense of this? Have you had any sense of anyone who's been involved that makes at all a bit of sense to you?
Well, that's the thing with the balance sheet stuff. I mean, you think about it. At the core, these guys are saying that we're using blockchain technology, right? I mean,
Yep.
we're using crypto in a novel way to make money. Yet, when it comes to the actual accountability features, they're not using it at all, right?
Good point.
Right?
Right.
Because in theory, they should be able to point at addresses with this whole proof of reserves movement going on, where
Right.
companies are disclosing the address, their assets, of course,
Right.
not their liabilities, but that would at least give one side of the picture to a degree, at least better than what FTX has supplied thus far, right? Because yeah, like you said, all we've seen are just these balance sheets that look like they were typed up in Excel, and that anyone can say anything.
Right.
Where's the backing system, accounting system with actual controls, like you said? I mean, yeah, I don't have due diligence experience, but implementing ERP systems, that software does accounting.
Right. Data integrity is critical. Where does it come from? What's the data source? All that sort of stuff.
And,
Similar idea. Just are you
and we had
validating
to
what's real?
and we had to set up you set up security, meaning that certain users in the system can't modify certain tables or even see certain screens with data, right?
Right.
Typically your CFO or your controller would be the one. They might even have write access, right? They might just
Yeah.
have read only and have to send it back to APAR or whoever. So like this guy was saying, yeah, the lack of controls, right? Because it sounds like
There were none.
SBF had God mode basically and could do whatever he
Exactly.
wanted.
Did.
But in a real company,
Yep.
you would have a controller who's responsible for this stuff and him telling the CEO, this is where we're at. Not him like probably typing in Google Sheets and saying, here's my balance sheet.
It's madness. And we had a chat yesterday on another aspect of this, is that, I will often come across as kind of critical of the regulators, and for good reason. I've been a chief compliance officer for both CFTC and SEC and FSA, now FCA regulated companies in England, in the US. So I got a clean track record. We follow the rules. Many of them are infuriatingly pointless and redundant. But after watching an FTX, I get why they're there, right? Are regulators perfect? No, right? But we created the SEC in the wake of the shenanigans that went on in the 1920s, to protect mom and pop investors from the shenanigans of insiders. And for those of us who've been in these markets for a long time, it's illegal to do things like it's called painting the tape, meaning you put up bid and ask numbers on a screen in any market, but you have no intention of actually fulfilling those trades, right? It's purely a matter to get someone who's looking at the market and seeing every other bid they're seeing sucks. But Messina and Company is offering a great price, so I'll call them. And then the trick, of course, is in the days of voice brokerage, when you get the broker on the phone, is, oh, you just missed that, but I can do it at this level, right? So there are all these rules around, requiring honesty in markets, requiring basically data integrity. Are you going to buy at the price you claim you're going to buy at? Are you going to sell? All that sort of stuff is baked in. And sleaze weasels will always try to abuse the system. But after watching this crap, I invite regulation all day. Like anyone who put and this is personally, it's been upsetting because a couple of the companies in the crypto space that I advise got burned in this. These are not dumb guys, very smart, right? And their logic was, well, this thing is so huge, it must be real. But I mean, God, that's what they thought about Madoff too. And I often make no friends in my business because I refuse to take reputation as a proxy for due diligence. So
Right.
I'm still spinning in bafflement here. All the big stuff around laundering money through Ukraine and millions to Democrats, that's probably going to come out. But like at the core level, did no one look? Sequoia, Skybridge Capital, these are smart people. Like, did no one look? They all assumed someone else had.
Number was going up.
Number was going up. I like it when they go up.
Right. So like even
Wow.
these VC funds who are established and credentialed, they ignore it because, well, BTC is going to 70K, ETH is going to 5K, Ripple's going to $3, right? Everything's pumping, so it's all good. Solana's going to 150. Now it's $10, right?
Of course. I got this great book sent to me, The True Value of Bitcoin Revealed, by this guy who writes the Satoshi Nakamoto. Very funny, right? And the best part is, and I'm gonna spoiler alert, every page is a new way of saying zero. It's brilliant, right? So, more fundamentally, is this finally the needle that pops this stupid bubble?
I hope so. I think the market is just, I've been saying this for a while, that it's like it's on the Grand Canyon and it's like pretending to fall off the cliff, but not really. That's where they're at. And
Like a
eventually
Roadrunner cartoon, Wile E. Coyote's holding onto it.
yeah. Basically he's walked out and he's on the air, but he doesn't know it yet.
He hasn't noticed yet. His Acme Rockets parachute hasn't arrived yet. That's phenomenal. Oh god, that's phenomenal. Tangentially, years ago, I'm so glad I did. I bought the URL Wiley Coyote Super G and .us. So I've got Wiley Coyote Super Genius. I've not found a reason to use it yet. But maybe not. Maybe now is the time. So I mean, that's it. I mean, you've been talking about this a long time. It took me a while, quite frankly, as our friend Kurt converted me to a big blocker in 20 minutes when I finally understood Bitcoin, and after Craig, obviously. Yeah, I mean, the thing that I'm less facetiously, what I'm very concerned about is there is enormous utility and promise in blockchain technology. There's huge real world applications to use Bitcoin as BSV, Bitcoin Social Vision, as a very low friction, low cost, way of transmitting things with reliable audit trails. I would hate to see real useful development stymied. Because people confuse in their minds this crypto crap, which has been alive from day one, and the real things that are of use that people are building. I mean, how do you have clients who are kind of having that existential moment, or are they already smart enough to understand the distinction?
The folks I work with are already far enough down the path where this honestly validates their thesis. So if anything, I think they're emboldened and motivated. These are for the people that are already in. As far as newcomers, I think it's going to impact that a lot, especially with all the prices going down and people just not going to want to touch it. So yeah, I think the burn down is necessary. I mean, I'm looking at it thinking this is overall good, kind of what the BTC maxis are saying, but for different reasons, because you can't do anything with BTC. But it's that because I think this I mean, I was a kid during the .com bubble, but it looks like the same thing happened.
Same nonsense.
Pets.com had to go out before Amazon and Google could take over, right? And one of the guys I know, Jack Pitts, he talked about, because everyone says, oh, well, BTC's won, right? They're the market leader. But that the market already decided.
What market?
Exactly. But my friend Pitts, he said in 2000, I think, or 1999, Google was worth 1/1000th of AOL.
Right.
And if you ask some of these new kids on the street, they probably never even heard of or used AOL.
Oh, I remember living through that merger, right? Because the great embarrassment was AOL was on market cap terms worth more than Time Warner, which had this huge, infrastructure and all this sort of stuff. And it was, I lived through that first crash, and the same kind of nonsense, the new lingo, clicks to eyeballs. Just all this nonsense that they created is the same stuff here, right? Staking. It's called lending. We have a word for it. You don't need a new word for it. It's called lending. That's what it is. And if you're being told that you're getting 15% per week, risk-free, what are you in the mafia? Like that's loan sharking on the arm. Like that's dangerous stuff. But no, I'm going to get 15%. I'm going to be rich tomorrow. Okay, fascinating. I've got this coin. What does it do? It makes me rich. I mean, I'm sorry. It's really useful. So I'm kind of happy this nonsense is washing out, and I really hope that those people who are invested. What is our pal Kurt's great comment? Spend your beer money, not your rent money, right? On this, but what I really want from a public policy standpoint is. And thank God the Republicans got 218 seats in the House, or otherwise they would make this disappear again, right? So we're going to replace January 6th, the musical, with hearings into why did taxpayer money go to Zelensky in Ukraine, who then invested with Sam, this chubby loser living in a polyamorous penthouse in the Bahamas, who's magically giving $40 million to Democrats in this cycle. I mean, that is worthy of examination in a very serious way. And I kind of wonder, is this done correctly? This could be like Warren Harding and Teapot Dome. Like, you can't let this level of corruption go on in your administration without consequences. It just will further erode anyone's faith in the system. So,
especially with all those photos he took with the different politicians, right?
Oh, yeah. Now, Maxine Waters, that lunatic who lives in a mansion far from her district, which is spiraled deeper into poverty and misery since she took over there and was their representative, and she's busy shaking hands and hugging SBF.
Yeah.
And notice how they are sprinting to do investigations in the lame duck session of Congress. So Maxine Waters, a prime beneficiary of SBX's slush fund, SBS slush fund, she's going to lead the investigation. It's laughable.
Well, that's exactly what happened. I mean, the government has pulled this type of crap before, right? After, in my view, that they murdered JFK, the guy, JFK fired the CIA head. What was his name at the time? Oh my gosh, I forget his name. But anyway, they fired him. And then after he was killed, to investigate his death, they brought him back to lead the investigation of JFK's death. The guy that he fired when he was in president.
Well, that's fair, because 51 intelligence community leaders told us that Hunter Biden's laptop had all the earmarks of Russian misinformation. What I've loved about that sentence ever is, I'm terrified that some of the most highly placed, powerful people in our government don't understand the definition of words. I think what they meant was hallmarks. It had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. Earmarks are things that are attached to bills that get spent in Congress. There wasn't a mistake. They keep using that phrase. I don't, did no one hand them a dictionary? But beyond that, I'm just seriously hoping, as we sit here and this has unraveled the last few days, having been part of due diligence teams that looked at things that were run by very reputable people and that we said no to, and one specifically, I still kind of, it's not bearing the personal scars of it, but it was, in some ways it's true. I was a younger person. We were doing due diligence on this firm, and none of it made any sense. Same kind of thing. None of it made any sense. They couldn't tell us how they put the possessions on. When we finally demanded some evidence of kind of their risk management protocols, they clearly went and asked the trader something, and the analyst who wrote it down sent it to me. Like, it was gibberish. It threw around gamma and delta and all these derivatives terms. It's like they'd looked it up online on Wikipedia. And I handed it. I was like, I'm pretty sure this makes no sense, but I just want to make sure. And I handed it to one of our in-house most experienced derivatives market makers, who just laughed. He looked at this piece of paper, he printed the email out, took a highlighter, and he highlighted the 6 terms. Like, these are all mutually contradictory. You cannot, this makes no sense whatsoever. And so we put our foot down and refused to take the business. And our boss and the chairman, coming from Europe, they were insistent, because of course it was going to be an embarrassment. They knew the founder of this fund. They played golf with him, right? And when they were pushing and pushing, I never forget, I'm like, and it was my career. I got a young family, and I'm like, I'm not, you want to do it, go ahead. But here's my written statement of why I think this is a bad idea. You go right ahead. And they didn't. 3 weeks later, the fund collapsed spectacularly. And the firm I was part of, we were going to be their clearing agent, and we would have been wiped out. The entire firm would have been wiped out. Was I thanked for that? No, I was not.
No.
Because I was just a reminder that the idiots above me drinking wine didn't even know they were about to put the entire business at risk by accepting them as a clearing client. So, in some senses, oftentimes being right doesn't help. I mean, I'm happy I did it, right? It did nothing bad to my career. But I remember that vividly. I was young enough to think I'd be thanked. Silence. So human nature often matters more than quantitative reality, which we have discovered again with Sam and his stone girlfriend, who went on TV and bragged about not knowing math. Did you see that interview? Oh yeah, is like some Puerto Rican podcast. 2 nice guys who are, they're having a podcast. We like people with podcasts. But they asked her, because she went to MIT, I think, and they're asking her, like, as you would, so you're running this really complicated crypto hedge fund, basically. Would anyone who wants to be in this space need the kind of math degree you have from MIT, I think, whatever, the math degree you have? And she's like, I know, you're doing basic math. And like, you lose money. I was just like, it was horrifying. Horrifying. So, and that video was available before some of these big names put money in.
Right.
So you've got an unregulated exchange.
Mm.
You've got Sam who just takes billions of dollars of customer money, gives it to his self-professed amphetamine-free girlfriend who giggles about not using math, and it's gone.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, heads should roll for this.
Yeah.
So we shall see. What's your over-under? Will heads roll? Will any Democrat politicians be called on the carpet and exposed? What do you think?
My thing is, it just seems like this whole thing is kind of trolling the public at this point because it's so absurd. And, I don't, I guess I just, as someone who's a critic, I'm just too entrenched to understand why stuff hasn't moved swiftly, right? Because I
Right.
know the government is slow, but it just seems like this is such an obvious breach of folks' rights that they need to be taken under somewhere. I mean, I know they weren't under U.S. jurisdiction, but obviously there was U.S. customers.
Sure.
So,
Famous U.S. celebrities sporking it who are now getting sued.
and that's the other thing, right? Is that's the thing that makes me think there will be a heavy hand coming down because you had so many people that can't be ignored, like Tom Brady, Steph Curry, some of these politicians,
Yep.
that it's just too much. It's not something that can be easily swept under the rug, right? So, and this could just be delay tactics because that's what I think has been going on. Harping on the point that you just made about how the your bosses didn't want you guys to do this deal. How much of that is still happening in the crypto space where it's like we know we're fucked, but we're just trying to
Yeah.
stretch the rope as long as possible before it hangs us. I think that's probably what the media is doing because they probably got to get the regulation together, right? Before they can start saying, okay, Bitcoin's a scam. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like that might be why they're saying they're there, Sam. It's okay. You were just stressed out.
Right.
That's literally what these guys are
Don't
writing.
panic. Don't panic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
might be it because they know that they'll cause panic in the markets and make it even worse. So that could be it.
I guess, I've always been a major fan of, as I tell all my junior employees, that there may be others, but I know for sure that in three areas of human endeavor, absolute acceptance of objective reality is key: Buddhism, alcoholism, and finance. If you don't accept reality, you're fixing the wrong problem, right? So, just briefly around this Bitcoin crap, I was at this kind of self-selected conference thing in Chicago a few years ago. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to name it because this one presentation, this one guy was an anomaly for the rest of the group, so no need to tar them. But he clearly snowed the organizer, like so clearly snowed the organizer. Young kid, and he had this truly fabulous, if you will, origin story, like a Marvel superhero, right? So this idiot's like in his 30s, early 30s, with a non-American accent of some kind. I don't know what it was, but he was trying hard to speak English with an American accent from anywhere, right? So his origin story was he was in an orphanage in Arizona. Well, there are no fucking orphanages left in this country. Like, that ended years ago. It's a foster system. It doesn't exist, right? But he's telling this story, and I'm kind of looking around, right? Because you're in a room where everyone but like one person knows that this guy is completely full of it. But unfortunately, the guy that didn't know he was full of it was the organizer, who thinks this kid's awesome. And he's like, he's a crypto quadrillionaire or some nonsense. But of course, I've seen no balance sheets, right? And so he's trying to give us his shtick, which has clearly worked on retail idiots. Like, he's clearly made some money in this space. This is about 6 years ago, right? So in the height of the pump and dump. So it's before ICOs were like kind of squashed by the SEC. So he'd just done one and he made a lot of money, right? So I'm not claiming that. But it's clearly didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And afterwards, we finally were kind of grilling him. It was classic Ponzi scheme fraud stuff. Because like four or five of us who bid on Wall Street, I was the youngest. Everyone else was in their 60s. Was like, but there's no fundamental values. Like, you know what you're talking about. So, calm down, sunshine. Like, a share of stock there's a fundamental value. The company has got $8 million in the balance sheet, no liabilities, and 100 shares. It's worth 800 bucks a share, whatever. Like there's a fundamental calculation you can do. A bond is worth, in theory, how much they'll pay you back, and the credit adjusted. Like, what's the fundamental value to your asshole coin? Is it your asshole divided by 1,000? Like, none of it made any sense.
Yeah.
And so, of course, like all good fraudsters, he realizes when he's talking to people he can't scam. So he resorts to like throwing insults and running away. I guess that's it. I guess that I think is my final thought. And I'm curious, because you've been more crypto focused, I'm kind of more market focused. Is that for all the bitching and moaning those of us on Wall Street do about regulation, at heart we don't hate all regulation. We hate stupid regulation, right? And good regulation is there to protect unsophisticated investors from fraud like this, right? Just because a basketball player and a football player tell you it's great, in fact, that should make you more cautious, because if what I've got to offer is so great, I don't go hire celebrities for millions of dollars to talk about it.
Right.
I've never had to do that in my life.
Yeah.
So, and my last final thought on that is Larry David, when he gets on the defense chair, is going to point to all the videos and say, I don't know what you're talking about. I clearly tell them not to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have I missed anything there? Are there other warning signs that you've been a critic in this space longer than I have? And where do you think the real stupidity is, and how do people dodge it?
Yeah, it's the fundamental part, which everyone likes to ignore, especially with all the inflation and the money printing over the last 14 years or so, is that, the whole meme stock movement and meme coins. But, my thesis is that almost all of these coins are what your boy at this conference described,
Right.
which are air. They're not worth, they don't do anything fundamentally. And that's what's gonna manifest now that all the prices are coming down, because that's the only reason people got into it in the first place. What is left that you can use?
Yep.
So that's the key here. And this whole space is predicated on Bitcoin not working, which is false. So
Right.
how much damage is going to be done once that truth is finally out there? I think lots, right? And
Yeah.
BTC is going to be the one. I don't know how low it's going to go, but it does have some fundamentals, right? Because people mining, people are investing in it, right? So there's an ecosystem there. Granted, it's a Ponzi scheme, but there are capital
So
intensive
is Social
businesses.
Security.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is, as the prices come down from this event, mining was already getting very tough, and now it's going to get even tougher. So the difficulty on the network to mine reached an all-time high last month. And then you had this debacle this month, and then the price went down. So on that sense, the fundamental level, it looks really bad for BTC miners, really just all Bitcoin miners, because even some of them, a couple of them went bust just before this.
And that's interesting. Maybe that's an important point. So that's because the value of the coins they got from their minting operations was cost less than the electricity and equipment it took to generate them.
Well, also these guys were also speculating with these different hedge funds, probably like Alameda.
Wow.
Right. So we haven't even seen the fallout from the miners. I know a lot of their tokens or stocks are down from this event, but we haven't seen any fallout from that. And that's what I mean. I think there's just a lag here.
There's a ripple effect that's going to just damage is going to multiply outwards.
And then if you think about it, if that crashes the BTC price further, 12K, 10K, that problem gets exponentially worse.
That's interesting. Yeah, well, I think sane people at this point are accounting for their BTC position being worth zero, and anything they can get out above that is better than nothing. Right? That would be rational, because if you search, and everyone involved is talking about store of value, digital gold, all this crap, and it was nothing but a game of greater fool, right? Who is gonna jump in and buy it from me for a higher price? But no one could ever tell me, great, I've got this one Bitcoin. What do I do with it? Why do I care?
Yeah.
I mean, aside from trying to sell it to someone who wants to buy it for a higher price,
that's it. That's the only use of it.
What's the use? Whereas for BSV, right, or like Ethereum, for example, because we're doing something there on smart contracts, but the value of what we're doing using smart contracts for real world physical mining has nothing to do with the price of Ethereum.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's got a fundamental utility as a distributed database and structured financing package box. That's fine, right? I mean, I don't get upset about the price of Oracle stock. I don't stop using SQL Server because it went down 4%. Like, who cares?
Exactly.
So, I mean, how do you see that impacting sort of the few things that are worthwhile? I mean, Ethereum is a little expensive in terms of gas and using it, but kind of layer 2 makes it cheaper. But leaving all those details aside, because I'm sure my listeners don't care in the slightest. But all things that have fundamental value to it, like BSV or Ethereum or some stuff is built on Cardano. I mean, that will continue to the extent that people find it useful, much as the way as people keep buying annual subscription to Microsoft Office because they like Excel and Outlook. But no one speculates on the price of Outlook.
Right.
Huh.
They might speculate on the Microsoft stock.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's different.
But
that's
that's
the company.
That's different.
But they don't care about the thing itself. Huh. All right. Anything we missed? We'd like to keep you abreast of, for those of you who are creditors lining up to take SBF to the cleaners. Hopefully, the good news is the guy that got in charge, the new CEO, he's got experience in this, right? Oh yeah, John Ray III, right? So he's really good at going after and clawing back assets. So anyone who, I would be most nervous. I mean, I'd be terrified and irritated beyond belief if I had put a lot of money onto FTX and it was gone. But those people who, for whatever reason, last month, took money out, I'd be pretty nervous too. Because just because you were lucky enough to get it out before this collapsed, much like Madoff, right? They went back a number of years.
Wow.
And said, yeah, well, you were lucky enough to get a payout or a dividend. It was never yours. It was all stolen. So you're going to put that money back into the pool. And then we're going to divide it up.
More ridiculously, on social media forums, you have people openly committing financial fraud because, well, first of all, FTX lied and they said that the Bahamian government told them they could allow withdrawals only for those citizens.
Right.
So what people were doing were buying accounts online from Bahamian citizens to get money out and launder it. Right.
Wow.
That was happening last week. So
wow.
And you just, like I said, man, like I've been saying this, is that this crypto thing is just pure, in my view, pure sin almost.
Right.
Greed. And you see, to me, it's a demon. And the demon, instead of being hidden before, where it's like no one knows it's a Ponzi scheme, numbers going up, everything's fine. But now you have these folks out there, just fangs are out, drool is coming out, it's the light shining.
The big ugly monsters in the daylight.
Because doing it on Twitter, just openly saying that, hey, I will buy a Bahamian citizen's account for 100K because he's probably got millions in the platform. Right. It's worth it.
Yeah, if it were real, totally. If it's real, right? But that's as real as I got to get around to responding to my emails, because last week 4 separate Nigerian princes told me that they've got $90 million of my money that I was unaware of, and I just have to give them this information. So I'll get right on that. Oh, wow. That's madness. Well, it's going to be a matter of how wide they cast the net. I don't think there's anything that the government can sweep under the rug, even if they wanted to. There are enough people. In some ways, I'm going to thank, this is maybe a tangential thought, but I think it's related. I'm going to thank the highly politicized DOJ under Merrick Garland and FBI under Christopher Wray, who spent a year calling parents who were concerned about boys in dresses raping girls in school bathrooms domestic terrorists, right? So a lot of normal people who've never given a thought to the Department of Justice have found out that they're being called domestic terrorists because they went to school board meetings and told school board members, you're assholes. So the DOJ has been spending its time on that. And if they don't now go after an actual real fraudster, that's a real problem. So let's hope they swing their attention to Sam and his stoned girlfriend and, at least, take the apartment and take all the rest of it. The Corolla's not worth much, but take all that and start to divvy it up to people. But I don't know. With that, I've asked twice to know, but it's so compelling and your brain hurts so much. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I think folks should not be fooled by this lull. To me, it's just a lag, and I don't know when it's going to go down further because I just don't see a reason for it to go up. But I just think that there's going to be kind of a mass carnage that's imminent, in my view.
Even worse. With those cheerful thoughts, which should be music to the ears of anyone who didn't get caught up in this hype and were told by everyone who knew them how stupid they were for not getting out of IBM stock and into Bitcoin, may the damage be mitigated, and may Ray and the receivers actually find some of this. That'd be great. So people get made whole, and Sam and Caroline can go to jail forever, which they deserve, just like the founder of Silk Road. I see no difference. No difference at all. If he got a year, if he got the life in prison for running an online marketplace on crypto, I don't see why they shouldn't also. Till next time, everyone, really be sure to ignore the mainstream media if they're not talking about FTX, and tune in here and hear what Joshua and I have to say later on.
Learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it matters. Bitcoin 101, your ultimate guide to the fundamentals of blockchain.